Long before he conquered Europe and crowned himself emperor, a fiercely ambitious boy from a small island dreamed of achieving absolute greatness. His path from a bullied outsider to a brilliant military mastermind is one of the most fascinating stories in human history. Today we are exploring his incredible journey in Napoleon Bonaparte, his early life and rise. Napoleon was born on August 15, 1769, in the town of Ajaccio on the island of Corsica. Just 1 year before his birth, the French military had conquered Corsica, making him a French subject. However, his noble Italian family was very proud of their Corsican heritage. His father, Carlo, worked with the new French rulers to secure a future for his children, while his strict mother, Letizia, taught Napoleon intense discipline. Growing up, young Napoleon hated the French soldiers who occupied his island. He idolized local freedom fighters and dreamed of leading his people to independence. This intense island pride made him an outsider, shaping the fierce, independent personality that would later terrify Europe. When Napoleon was 9 years old, his father secured a scholarship for him at a military academy in mainland France. Leaving his beloved island was incredibly hard for the young boy. At the Brienne Military Academy, he was surrounded by the sons of wealthy French aristocrats. Napoleon spoke French with a thick Corsican accent, and his classmates constantly bullied him for his strange name and poor background. Instead of begging for their friendship, Napoleon fought back with his mind. He isolated himself in the school library, reading everything about great ancient conquerors like Julius Caesar. He became obsessed with history, geography, and mathematics. This difficult time taught him to rely only on himself. Because he was brilliant at mathematics, Napoleon was chosen to attend the prestigious École militaire in Paris to train as an artillery officer. In the 18th century, artillery was the most modern and technical branch of the military. It required complex calculations and a deep understanding of physics. While wealthy nobles chose the glamorous cavalry, Napoleon knew that cannons were the future of warfare. He studied endlessly, analyzing how to move heavy guns quickly and concentrate their fire. When his father died unexpectedly, Napoleon had to rush his studies to save money. He completed a 2-year course in just 1 year, graduating at 16 as a second lieutenant in the French Royal Army. Everything changed in 1789 when the French Revolution exploded across the country. Angry citizens overthrew the king and shattered the traditional rules of society. For a young, ambitious officer like Napoleon, this chaos was the perfect opportunity. Many top generals in the French army were wealthy nobles who fled the country to escape the guillotine. This left a massive shortage of experienced military leaders. Suddenly, promotion was based on talent and bravery rather than family wealth. Napoleon fully supported the revolution and its ideals. He briefly returned to Corsica to spread revolutionary ideas, but a bitter conflict with local leaders forced his family to flee. Napoleon realized his future was in France. In 1793, the new French Republic was fighting for its survival. Violent rebellions were breaking out, and the most dangerous one happened in the southern port city of Toulon. The citizens of Toulon hated the revolutionary government and actually invited the British Navy to take control of their city. The French army surrounded the city, but their commanders had no idea how to break through the strong defenses. By pure luck, a young Captain Napoleon Bonaparte was assigned to command the artillery. He immediately saw what the older generals missed. He realized they did not need to attack the city directly, but simply capture a specific hill overlooking the harbor. Napoleon argued fiercely until his commanders allowed him to execute his brilliant plan. He gathered cannons and set up heavy artillery batteries to fire upon the enemy forts. During the final assault, Napoleon led from the front, showing incredible physical courage under heavy fire. He even had a horse shot out from under him and took a painful bayonet wound to his leg. His daring plan worked perfectly. Once his cannons were placed on the high ground, they had a clear shot at the British ships. The British fleet was forced to sail away, leaving the city defenseless. Toulon surrendered, and Napoleon was promoted to brigadier general at just 24. Despite his great success, Napoleon soon found himself caught up in dangerous politics and was briefly thrown in prison. But in 1795, he proved his loyalty by using his cannons to crush a violent rebel mob in the streets of Paris. As a reward, the government gave him command of the Army of Italy. The Army of Italy was a starving, unpaid, and poorly equipped force fighting the powerful Austrian Empire. When Napoleon arrived, the veteran soldiers laughed at the skinny young general. But Napoleon quickly changed their minds. He promised them honor, glory, and all the riches of the Italian plains if they followed him into battle. What followed was one of the most brilliant military campaigns in human history. Napoleon moved his army with lightning speed, marching his men through the night to surprise the enemy. He divided his forces to confuse the Austrians, then brought them back together to strike with overwhelming power. At famous battles like Lodi and Rivoli, he destroyed armies much larger than his own. He personally led terrifying charges across heavily defended bridges, proving he was willing to die beside his men. In just 1 year, this young commander pushed the mighty Austrian army out of Italy. Almost overnight, Napoleon became the most famous and celebrated man in France. Knowing he was now a massive political threat, the nervous French government sent Napoleon far away. They approved his bold plan to invade Egypt in 1798 to block British trade routes to India. At the Battle of the Pyramids, his modern army easily crushed the local Egyptian forces. However, his dreams of an Eastern empire were quickly shattered. The legendary British Admiral Horatio Nelson found the French fleet anchored off the coast of Egypt and completely destroyed it at the Battle of the Nile. Napoleon and his army were now trapped in the scorching desert, completely cut off from France. Despite winning several land battles, the situation became completely hopeless. While trapped in Egypt, Napoleon secretly read European newspapers and discovered that France was in deep trouble. The government was broke, corrupt, and hated by the French people. Worse still, enemy armies were once again marching toward the French borders. Napoleon knew this was his ultimate moment of destiny. In a highly controversial move, he secretly abandoned his struggling army, boarded a small ship, and snuck past the British Navy to return home. When he landed in France in October 1799, the people cheered for him in the streets. They saw him as the undefeated hero of Italy, the only man strong enough to save their country from total ruin. Napoleon quickly allied himself with powerful politicians who wanted to overthrow the failing government. On November 9, 1799, they launched their daring plot. Napoleon marched into the government assemblies, but the situation almost ended in disaster. Angry politicians surrounded him, screaming and threatening to declare him an outlaw. He was physically attacked and dragged out of the room by his soldiers. But his clever younger brother, Lucien, saved the day. Lucien drew his sword, pointed it at Napoleon's chest, and swore to kill his own brother if he ever became a tyrant. This dramatic stunt convinced the soldiers to clear the room and shut down the government forever. In the aftermath of the coup, a new government called the Consulate was created. At just 30 years old, Napoleon outsmarted his political allies and had himself named the First Consul of France. He was now the absolute dictator of the nation. He quickly went to work fixing the broken country. He rewrote the laws, created a national bank, and completely reorganized the military. The boy who was once mocked for his strange accent and poor clothes was now living in the royal palaces of Paris. He had used his brilliant mind and unmatched skill to conquer a nation, setting the stage for his epic empire. Which of Napoleon's early military victories do you think was the most important to his rise to power? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to Warrior Legacies for more incredible military history.